You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again on the network. Time for a little bit of a journey in the world of all things crypto. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the optionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you have just been sucking up all the bandwidth these days. Don't worry, there's more where that came from. A couple reminders at the top of the show. First off, if you're just listening to crypto, we get it. A lot of you are crypto native. I understand these options things are intimidating, scary to you. Make sure you get the full network. It's all coming at you, pretty much whatever platform you're listening to this on now. You can get shows like Options Playbook Radio and Options Boot Camp, and even the strategy block segments of the Option Block and other educational offerings on the network there. And that will serve you well in understanding what the heck we're talking about on this show and what's going on in general in these crypto derivatives markets, which are proving more and more central to the crypto world all the time. And then, of course, if you have questions about all things crypto, and, you know, crypto pops up more and more in our pro Q&A sessions. I don't care who the guest is. We just had Rich Excel, who does a lot of our futures option stuff and also talks a lot about volatility. He was surprisingly into crypto. He got some crypto questions. The next thing you knew, he was diving deep into ETH vol versus Bitcoin vol and everything else on our pro Q&A just last week. So crypto seeps in there quite a bit. So if you are intrigued, you want to participate in those, only one place to get access to those, as well as, of course, access to Options Oddities, which is just an awesome show, if I do say so myself, every week where we break down all sorts of fun, unusual activity. And then, of course, giveaways coming up. We're giving away the November Pro Trading Crate for our listeners. So hopefully, if you were a Pro member active in the month of November, your name is now officially in the hat. If you want to get your name in the hat for December, only one place to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. The place to go to join that partay over there. All sorts of fun to be had out there. As we keep on rolling, Just the Facts, Ma'am edition this week. Not rolling out the crypto hot seat. Instead, we're diving right into the good stuff because there's a lot to get to with the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown. And if you're out there, if you're a hodler, if you're a Bitcoin bull or just a crypto bull in general, chances are you probably got a smile on your face. If you're somebody like Uncle Mike on my Option Block show, maybe a bit of a crypto hater, maybe not so much. But for everybody else out there, you've got quite the smiley face. You've been checking your balances in whatever app you use to trade your crypto these days and probably looking a little bit larger, a little bit greener now than even it was this time last week when it was already on the Rampage. Of course, all this upside driven by just continued speculation over this Bitcoin ETF. People think it's coming pretty much any day now. In fact, we asked this question of you folks, our listeners, back on our shortened Thanksgiving broadcast week. We asked you folks, hey, seems like everybody's buying crypto anticipation of the new spot ETF coming this year. Well, let's put it up to you folks. Quite simply, will the new spot Bitcoin ETF be approved this year? Very straightforward, yes or no. And the yeses took it ever so slightly, 56%, no 44%. So it seems like that euphoria is being reflected in spot Bitcoin price right now, because coming into the start of the show, listeners, we were just shy of the 42,000 level, 41,906 when we commenced operations on the show today. That's a wee bit north of where we were this time last week, a little bit north of 37,000, 37,051. So we're almost 5,000 handles north of where we were this time last week. 48.55 to be precise is how much upside we have net show to show. It's been a while since we've seen Bitcoin popping that hard, listeners. In fact, earlier today we did cross that magical, mythical 42,000 level. Got up to 42,109. Again, these are levels we haven't hit in quite some time, not back since April of 2022. That time frame may sound a little familiar because it is an infamous one, listeners. That's back when all of that Terra Luna madness broke in the marketplace, and it really kind of gave a gut punch to the entire crypto space, and Bitcoin retreated aggressively below 40K. And we haven't really revisited since. So it's taken a while for Bitcoin and indeed crypto as a whole to regain some of that confidence. A lot of it being carried now just on the wings of all this optimism over this ETF. The low came pretty much right after our show last week, 36,750. So that's quite a run from 36,000 and change up to where we were this morning, 42,000 and change. The days of Terra and Luna and all that madness seem, even the days of FTX, which was about exactly a year ago, now seem like a distant memory out here in the world of crypto. Well, let's dive in and see what all this means from an underlying, from a volatility, from a skew, from all sorts of fun perspectives. Remember, all this data coming at you courtesy of our friends over there at Amber Data, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Well, let's start near dated and work our way out as we are wont to do. Listeners, let's start with a 7-day vol. Some people argue, myself included sometimes, that 7-day vol, not really volatility. It's more gamma at that point, but everyone's so obsessed with weeklies. Look how much paper is going up. We just did it on the Option Block show about an hour ago. How much is going up in big products like SPX? Of the top 20 most active contracts in SPX today, all of them are expiring today. And of the top 40, 35 or so are expiring today. So that just shows you, if you're not talking about the near-dated stuff, you're missing out on almost all the action. So it's a necessity now. You have to discuss the near-dated stuff. And so 7-day vol, a little bit shy of a 50 right now, 49.70. So coming in, which is interesting given the massive run we've had. And usually when Bitcoin moves to the upside, usually we see a little bit more vol tick in. Yet on the near-dated stuff, just it's hard to keep that much juice on the 7-day vol. And that's proven out because last week we were 52.8. So it's come in a little over 3 points. Now, you go out about a month, that's a little bit of a different story. That might make a little bit more sense when you're looking at the 30-day vol, because last week we were at a 44.3. This week, a 50 3/4, so over 6 handles, almost 6.5 handles to the upside, which, again, given the amount of range we've seen this week, and also the fact that we see continued upside, that makes a lot of sense. That tends to fall into the pattern we've seen a lot with Bitcoin, which is very much the opposite, of course, of your traditional, let's say, equities. S&P rallies. VIX, which is, of course, the vol of the S&P, tends to come off. Bitcoin, not so much. We rally, we get into the part of the skew where the hodlers are bidding things up. They get optimistic, they get frothy. Vol tends to increase as we go up, and that's kind of what we're seeing out here in the 30-day vol. Same deal, a little bit more muted, obviously, in the 6-month vol. We were at 58 3/4 this time last week, coming in to start the show today, over 59, about 59 1/3. So popping, but not quite as aggressive as what we're seeing right around the 1-month window, which is, again, the traditional benchmark, the traditional measuring window that most people use for vol, somewhere around 30 days. Let's go out to Skew. Same deal. You got to start in the near dated stuff. The Skew last week, biased to the upside, about 5 1/4 points. If you don't know what that means, of course, check out Options Playbook Radio or Options Bootcamp on our network, or even Volatility Views when we're talking about Skew a lot. That will help you understand a little bit more what we're talking about here. This week, 3 3/4 points, so coming in about 1.5 points. Still biased to the upside, but a little bit less so. Same deal on the 30-day Skew, which is kind of interesting. It was about a 4.6 to the upside last week, 4.35 this week. So still in that same ballpark, but just coming in a little bit. And again, we have been blowing through some strikes to the upside, so some of that could be just exhausting the positions and blowing through them. People are taking them off. Either way, that Skew remaining roughly the same, but coming in a little bit on the 30-day front. 6 month. This is kind of a fascinating number here as well. 6-month Skew, it was 8 1/4 to the upside last week, about 5 2/3, 5.65 this week. So coming in actually quite a bit out there, which is interesting. Maybe a little bit more indicative of what I was just talking about, blowing through strikes and then folks maybe taking some of that off as a result. You have calls. If you don't monetize them, they're not really much use to you. So that could be what's happening out there a little bit longer term. That is a little bit large Skew move for 6-month vol, but then again, these are crazy times. We're seeing Bitcoin exploding 5,000 handles nearly net in a week. It's a lot of upside to process. Speaking of processing, let's see what's going on from an overall OI perspective out there on Deribit. How much paper is open on both sides of the fence? Let's start on the call side of the fence. That's where everybody's looking right now. And the answer is a little bit more, which is kind of interesting. 225,000 up about 4,000. Now, that may not sound like a lot. You're like, wow, only 4,000 new contracts, but a couple of things working against it. First off, like I said, we blew through a lot of strikes, so people are going to be taking some calls off. And also, remember, we just had November expiration, so that usually hits all of these products pretty hard, and so we have to make back some of that OI. So the fact that we're actually up 4,000 compared to where we were this time last week when we've had an expiration since then also shows you they have put in a lot more paper since our last show. So it's a little bit of a misleading number just show to show. You have to kind of look at what's going on in between. Puts, same deal, 101,000. They're actually up about 10,000 this week, which is also fascinating because A, it takes a lot for puts to gain OI. B, it doesn't usually happen when we're rallying hard. Usually it's to the call side. And C, like I just said, we had an expiration since our last show, so that number should have come off quite a bit. And the fact that it's actually up shows we're seeing a decent amount of put paper out there as well, which is interesting and also a little bit contrary to what we see out there in crypto world. When things start rallying, it's usually all calls all the time. So some put sneaking in there, kind of interesting. You know what else is interesting, listeners? It's all of our equity friends that people like to use to trade crypto in their securities accounts, especially when we're talking about the things that are optionable. Well, let's start out in BitO. And man, do you folks like BitO again? 20 3/4 is where it was when we kicked off the show, up 2 1/4 points. And volume-wise, it used to be around 90-odd thousand contracts. It fell off. It got down to sub 20 not too long ago, 16,000 I think it was at. It's back up to about 48,000 now, even though it came down over the last week for the holiday. But right now, we're blowing that away again, over 2x that. 104,000 contracts on the tape in BitO today. This is the kind of paper we haven't seen in quite some time. What is the most active contract out there in BitO today, you might be wondering? Spoiler, there's going to be a call. I know that's blowing your mind. It's the DEES 22 halves. So we're at 20 3/4 right now, 22 halves. So decent way out of the money, 1 3/4 points out of the money calls, going up over 12,000 times today. No surprise, paper buying those. And behind that, distant number 2, we have the DEES expiring this week on the 8th, 20 half calls. Those make more sense. They're a little bit in the money right now with a little bit of time to go, going up about 5,000 times this week. So interesting stuff. The DEES 22 halves loading up on the upside. Let's just look really quickly to see how those went up in chunks of about 2,000 throughout the day. It looks like paper buying them mostly on prices ranging from 25 to 29 cents today. So listeners, you like those? We have a couple of weeks for those, not even about 11 days until they expire, going up again about 12,000 times. Would you rather buy those or sell those? 22 halves in BITO in 11 days. Remember, if you own BITO, you could sell those against it. A little bit of an extra income stream for you out there. Speaking of income streams, we should know more about the BITO dividend coming up soon. If you know anything about BITO, periods where Bitcoin is rallying, they tend to pay quite a bit. Our annual dividend yield right now, their ex-dividend date was the 1st. I don't think they've announced what the new dividend was. The most recent dividend was in November. It was 14 cents, and then 7.3 cents in October. Obviously coming in a little bit over the last few months compared to the 66 cents we saw in July, 42 cents in June, because those were strong, aggressive rally periods. Maybe we'll see something along those levels again when we see the total, or the amount announced for December. Right now, it looks like the annual dividend adds up to about $1.52, which is about almost an 8% dividend yield. So obviously coming in a bit from previous years, but if this recent rally is anything, any indication, probably going to be a healthy dividend for this most recent offering out there. Remember, if you're playing with BITO, the dividend is a huge component. Obviously, 8% right now. In previous years, it's been much higher dividend yield. So if you're missing out on the dividend, you're missing out on a decent story with BITO, which makes some of these calls so interesting, because obviously they're not collecting the dividends. That's going to be a challenge from a performance perspective for those. Speaking of calls, let's look at the top positions in BITO out there right now. Number 5, we have about 30,000 of the Jan. Again, these are all Jan 2025 again. 2025, 20 calls. Number 4, 44,000 of the Jan 25s. Number 3, 69, almost 70,000 of the Jan 35s. Number 2 are only front month Jan, so the Jan of 2024 contract in our top 5. 83,000 of the Jan 65s. And the top position in BITO options right now, 96,000, so almost 100,000 of the Jan 2025 30s. I've talked about these before on the show. I won't belabor it again. Not my favorite way to go with the fact you have such a hefty dividend involved here. But again, at the end of the day, the way we've rallied, 30 seems a lot more doable by 2025 than it did, let's say, a couple of months ago, even with the massive dividend drag you're going to have on those calls. Speaking of action, I had to put this in the show today as well because it came up on our top 10 most actives on the option block. And I know for you folks, we've done polls in the past. And for all of you out there who like to trade crypto options in your securities accounts, or at least get some crypto exposure in your securities account, you want an optionable name. A lot of you, your top choice, in fact, for all the polls we do, your top choice is Mara. That was coming in to start the show right around 14 3/4, up about $1.10 just today. So up over 8% just today. So Marathon Digital just exploding today. Also exploding from a volume perspective. We said BITO was blowing the doors off 104,000 contracts. Well, strap in Marathon Digital doing 421,000 contracts today. So just a beast from a volume perspective. And also from a volatility perspective, Vol itself, Vol in BITO, we got so excited we didn't even get to it. The Vol in BITO, 64, that's up 7%. You might be saying, man, that's a ton of juice for BITO. And you're right, it's a decent amount of juice for crypto. But Mara, 111 right now. So if you're looking for a little bit of juice to harvest, maybe Mara is the place to go. By the way, we're the top trades in Marathon Digital Holdings today. 30,000 almost exactly of the 15 calls expiring this week. So it looks like paper scooping some of those bad boys, and they're not that far out of the money right now. And then 23,000 of the 16 calls also expiring this week. And then about 15,000 of the 15 halves expiring this week. So kind of a call strip all going out there today. But fascinating stuff out here in Marathon. Before we roll out of the Bitcoin breakdown, let's look really quickly at some of the top positions in Marathon Digital Holding. Remember I said it was about a 14 3/4 right now, popping hard over $1 today. And the number 5 position in Marathon, 22,000 of the D's 12 calls. So those are looking pretty good right now. A couple of bucks in the money. Number 4, 23,000 of the Jan 12 halves, regular Jan. Again, also looking pretty good. Number 3, 27,000 of the Jan 2025 10s. Interesting. Also looking fairly good out here. Now, Marathon, I don't have to look and see. I don't think they have a dividend. Does not pay a dividend. No, I didn't think so. So you're not going to have the same issue with that dividend being a huge component of the returns and also a huge drag on the calls that you're going to have in BITO. Number 2, our only put to be found in the top 10 or top 5 this week, 27,000 of the Jan 10 put, so that 10 strike very popular. Those are the regular Jan now. And the number 1 size position in marathon options, 35,000 of the Jan 10 call. So interesting enough that it does roughly 4x the paper that BITO does, and yet the size position, the top position out there, is pretty much a third the size of the one in BITO. So kind of interesting out there. It shows the paper, the liquidity is far more evenly spread out there. Jan 10s, again, those are looking pretty good as well, with the stock popping $1 today, trading right around 14 3/4. As we keep on rolling, speaking of things that are popping, listeners, let's get out there and explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's dive on into the altcoin universe. Let's start where we always do, in the top 10. And it costs you right now about $9.1 billion worth of market cap to break into the top 10. So not that dissimilar from where we were this time last week. That gets us to our old friend Tron, kind of locked at the number 10 spot for a while now. Number 9, speaking of things that are locked down, Doge has the number 9 spot locked. $12.6 billion worth of market cap for Doge. Both Doge and Tron actually relaxing, exhaling a little bit today after some pretty big runs over the last month and change. Number 8, Cardano, $14.1 billion worth of market cap and the number 8 spot. Number 7, USD Coin, $23.3 billion. Number 6, it's Solana. Man, this thing has been on the rampage this year. Just insane. $60 and change when we kicked off the show out there. I mean, just this thing was sub $10, it seemed like, not too long ago out there, and obviously taking a lot of heat post FTX last year. I forgot the low, but to get to $9, I'll have to go back and check. I know it got to right close to the, I think the 10, yeah, 987. It's like 941. That was back in December. Did it get to 910? Got somewhere around that level, if not a little bit below, in that December, January timeframe. And then since then, it's kind of been on the rampage. But as recently as September, it was hanging out, $16 and change. So it had rebounded, but obviously nowhere near this aggressive run that it is in right now. Nonetheless, number 6, Solana, $25.75 billion. Number 5, XRP, $33.33 billion. Again, still hanging out, 61, almost 62 cents. At least when we ran these numbers here, people are waiting for for XRP to take that next step, hit that next gear, and for whatever reason, it seems like it's having a hard time. Number 4, BNB, $35 billion. Number 3 is Tether, $89.6 billion. Number 2, you know what it is. It's ETH, $268. And the number 1, the big dog, closing in on that 1T level again, getting at least a little bit closer. $820 billion worth of market cap for the big dog, which is Bitcoin. Looking bigger this week. Also looking bigger this week is ETH. On our last show, it was just north of 2011 to be precise. This week, just north of 2,200, 2227, up 216 handles on the week. The high came pretty much this morning, 2269. Again, these are levels that are not seen in ETH really since the post-Luna debacle. That was a little bit later for ETH. It was April was the highs, really the 40K level, and then we broke through it for Bitcoin. It came a little bit later in ETH. We haven't seen this level, 2,200, really since May of 2022. But still, it's been a while since we've really kissed this level up here. In terms of the lows, that came right after our show last week as well, and it was not that much lower, just a wee bit below the 2K level, 1988 to be precise. So we're getting back up there. We're getting back up to those levels. I know some people who not too long ago, well, actually it was a little while ago now, but washed their hands of ETH and others when it broke through 2,500 to the dark side, saying, that's it, I'm done. Maybe this resurgence has them looking back at it and some of these other assets we're talking about out here. ETH vol, let's start near dated and work our way out, listeners. ETH vol, as you might expect, popping a wee bit this week, especially on the 7-day front. 44.5 last week, 51 3/4 on the 7-day vol this week. So a nice pop on the weekly stuff. Getting out to the monthlies, it was a 48 on our show last week, 51 3/4. So again, similar level, 7-day, and exact same level actually, 7-day and the monthly vol. So that's kind of interesting. Up about 3 3/4 points on the monthly side. Not to be outdone, the 6-month vol also popping 58.3 last week, 60.82 this week. So up a little over 1.5 points out here. Actually looks like up about 2.5 points, a little over that on the week out here. So decent pop for ETH vol pretty much across the term structure. Let's see if the same thing can be said for the skew. On the weekly skew, it was a 240 last week, 280 this week. So a little bit more positive, a little bit more optimistic, a little bit more upside bias this week, but not a ton. The 1 month skew doubling. Last week it was positive 2.5. This week a positive 5. So looking a little bit more robust out there. And the 6 month skew, the lone wah-wah on this list, it was 7 3/4, so threatening an 8 this time last week. This week coming in exactly 2 points to 5 3/4. Again, some of that could be what we talked about earlier. Some people just taking off some of their long-term positions or longer duration positions because we've blown through those strikes and they want to take them off. That happens sometimes. I know it's heresy to say that in crypto. Everyone wants to hodl, but some people do take off some of their positions every now and then when they've blown through multiple strikes and they're sitting on some money. In terms of OI, again, we have rolled through an expiration, so you, in a normal market, would maybe expect these to be kind of lower or maybe just struggling to break even. This week, not the case. The calls, 2.2 million contracts open on Deribit. It's up nearly 200,000 from this time last week, 195 to be precise. The puts, 772,000. That's up 52,000 from this time last week. So more paper out there in the realm of ETH as we're seeing all this action out there. Solana, we just talked about it. Man, this thing, every week you say, okay, is this the apex? Is it done for now? And the answer is no. It was 54, almost 54.5, about 54.47 on the show last week. This week, 60.82, up another 6 and about a third. My goodness, this thing just, it was struggling to break 20 for so long this year, and now it's just on the rampage. Just really just crazy town out there. What's going on in Solana? Do we need to have Solana options back on the show? We may have no choice at this point if this keeps up, because this is just insanity. XRP, we just talked about it, a little bit shy of 62 cents, 61.9 when we kicked off the show. It was 59 last week, so it's up about 2 cents. So I suppose that's a good thing for XRP bulls. But compared to Solana, some of these other names they're talking about, XRP just can't find the magical upside gear that all these other assets we're talking about have found over the last couple of months. Doge, same deal here. 7.8 cents last week, 8.8 cents, so popping a full cent this week. So that's a good little pop for Doge. One of the reasons why it manages to hang on to that number 9 spot out there on the market cap. Also because apparently Musk loves it. It's enough to talk it up there as well. Litecoin, also talking about assets that managed to rally. Litecoin, not to be forgotten, 68.65 on the show last week. 72 and a little bit north of a half. 72.56 this week, up nearly $4, about $3.91 week over week. So Litecoin popping, Doge popping, Solana popping, ETH popping, Bitcoin popping, XRP for whatever reason just can't find that gear. Let's see if we can find some others. Cardano, nope, they're popping this week as well. 37.6 cents last week, 40 cents this week, up about 2.3 cents. Polkadot, 5.10 last week, 5.51 this week, up about 41 cents. And everyone's beloved Shiba last week, 0.00 million O's, 8.1 this week, 8.8, almost 8.9. So even a little bit of a pop out there in Shiba land. Are the Lambos coming? Well, they're a little bit closer this week than they were last week, listeners. As we keep on rolling, before we get out of here, let's tackle some of your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Questions. We already revealed your thoughts on our question of the week from a couple of weeks ago, so let's get out of here. By the way, you folks were believing that we're going to have a spot Bitcoin ETF approved before the end of the year, which, again, we're recording this in the first week of December. If you know anything about bureaucracy, not much happens the last week or two of December, so this thing has to get in gear if it's going to be approved by this year, and if our poll is to be believed, and if these valuation levels of these crypto assets is to be believed. But you know what? Beggars can't be choosers, I suppose, at the end of the day. But you folks, obviously very optimistic. The thing is coming sooner rather than later. As we go out to our question of the week, this comes from one of our pro members, Mackenzie, always a regular out there in our pro Q&As. Also asks a lot of great crypto questions. He's our resident crypto head in a lot of our pro Q&As, even though it seems like there's more and more of you out there all the time. She wants to know, quite simply, what are your thoughts on the SIBO's return to crypto? We have touched on this a few times, most recently with our guest last week on the show, listeners. But SIBO did announce a few weeks ago, November 13th, that they're getting back in the crypto game. They're launching margin Bitcoin and Ether futures that are going to launch on January 11th. So obviously we have no products yet to see. They say in the release that they are backed by, quote, crypto and traditional finance players. So kind of interesting. They don't get into too much more detail than that, other than that 11 leading firms across crypto and traditional finance committed to supporting the launch on day one. And they say SIBO Digital, which is a thing they've been trotting out there for a while. SIBO Digital, even though they had no real digital products. Of course, they acquired Eris, so they kind of rebranded that as SIBO Digital. But it always seems strange to me that they had this division called SIBO Digital when they had canceled the biggest product that they had in that space, which was, of course, the futures that they launched back in the day, 2017, with Gemini. I know for a lot of you out there, when those launched back in 2017, it was that head-to-head race. It was the 1X future with SIBO, which was more retail-friendly, obviously, and then the 5X mega contract that CME launched. A lot of people put their money, they thought the horse race was going to go to the SIBO product because just the multiplier. It was more manageable for people. And yet at the end of the day, we all know who won that race. CME still in the game. SIBO got out of it. We heard a lot of back and forth about what was to blame there with the issues with Gemini and the settlement and other things. A lot of fingers were pointed at what caused the demise of that product. But for whatever reason, it did go the way of the dodo. And they had SIBO Digital, but not much really going on there until this announcement. And now we have ostensibly margin futures launching in both Bitcoin and Ether on January 11th. They're trying to call themselves the first U.S. regulated crypto native combined exchange and clearinghouse to enable both spot and leverage derivatives trading on a single platform. Man, say that 5 times fast. That's a mouthful of a sentence. That's what they're going for. So they're trying to, we say on the show all the time, they're trying to hit that sweet spot, that overlap in the Venn diagrams of the crypto native folks who are terrified by central clearing and all those things. They're more, and then of course the folks who like it. So they're trying to say, hey, we're bringing crypto firms, trusted crypto firms into the space, as well as traditional finance. We're going to bring trust, transparency, and clearing. So transparency is good for a lot of the people out there in the DeFi world. They like to know what everything's going on chain. But of course, the clearing side for the traditional players who are still a little bit skittish about these markets out there. So, yeah, we don't know much beyond that yet here, Mackenzie, which is one of the reasons why I kind of held off going deep on this yet. They say they're going to launch margin futures. I would assume, given that they are an options exchange at the end of the day, I would assume that the plan is for options on these. I don't even know much about contract specs. I'm going to assume it's probably going to be that 1-to-1 size again. The 5X one for CME, I think, was pretty clearly constructed for an ETF, which worked. They got BITO to launch based off their futures, so that was your end game. Congratulations to you. It worked. Not that feasible for a lot of people, let alone funds, when Bitcoin starts getting up there. It's 40K now. It was 16,000 not too long ago. A larger multiplier than one starts to get a bit onerous, even for funds. So I would have to imagine spec-wise, it probably will be something similar to what we saw the last time. But again, we don't know for sure. So I have to wait till all these specs are released. We'll have to wait probably until closer to the launch in January before we hear all of that stuff. So am I intrigued? Yes. I love more options, pun intended, in the crypto space. I wish the original CBOE futures stayed around, and I wish they launched options on them. That's just better for everyone involved to have more products to sink their teeth into out there. So if you're full on DeFi, you want to go that way, you can go that way. If you're international and you want to trade the derivatives on a place like Deribit, you can do that. If you're US based, maybe you're a little bit more skittish about the crypto markets. You want to trade with a name you've heard of. You know it's probably not going to go the way of the dodo in the next 6 months or year, like FTX. Then maybe these are a better entry point for you. So I think there should be offerings for everyone out there. We'd love to see more established names in the world of finance committing once again to crypto. That's just a good thing for everyone at the end of the day. So I would love to see these take off. I would love to see options listed on them. I'd love to see more volume on the CME products as well. We don't talk about them as much on Twifo just because there isn't a ton of paper going up on them, but more options, pun intended, for all of you folks out there listening is what I'm in favor for here. So if these take off, if they could maybe solve some of the issues they had with the previous offering and make something that people actually gravitate towards, that's a win for everyone at the end of the day. So I'm hoping these take off. We'll know more, I would assume, in the next couple of weeks. Certainly by early January, I would think we'll know more about what exactly they're bringing to the table, and then more importantly, the roadmap for other things like options down the road. So great question, Mackenzie. Where I'm looking forward, like the rest of you, to seeing what these new SIBO futures, what they can bring to the table. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for this Just the Facts BAM edition. Yeah, Just the Facts. We still packed a lot of living here into the show this week. Back next week, of course, with the Crypto Hot Seat. Our buddy Greg Magadini, man, he can't stay out of this Crypto Hot Seat. He loves talking to you folks. So he'll be back next week. So look forward to some more fun there. Look forward to, of course, if you're listening to the full network, all the other content we have lined up for you throughout the rest of the week, including educational content like Options Bootcamp, This Week in Futures Options. I just mentioned it, where we do touch on occasionally some of the crypto derivatives when they put up some numbers over there on CME, volatility views, all sorts of fun on the network. So make sure, you're listening to this. Make sure you're getting the full network. Doesn't cost you anything. It's just a way for you to get access to more content. And then, of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you want to dive a little bit deeper into the world of options and derivatives, and, of course, the intersection with the crypto markets, which is a growing theme on our Pro Q&As. You folks get to guide those at the end of the day. So if you want to talk more about crypto derivatives, join up on the Pro. Ask the question. We'll get the best minds in the world of crypto derivatives to answer them for you. So if you got a question, you want to play along with those, you want to check out the 100+ we've already done that are just sitting there waiting for you, man, there's a lot of great content there. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. Of course, live streams, giveaways, everything else we got going on over there. It's really a fun time and a good group of people. You want to be a part of it. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. We'll see you throughout the rest of the week with our usual array of content until we're back again next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.